Hello and welcome to the Atlanta History Center's virtual author talk featuring Michael Ian Black in conversation with Chuck Bryant. Tonight he'll be discussing his new book, A Better Man, A Mostly Serious Letter to My Son. I'm Kate Whitman, the Vice President of Author Programs and Community Engagement for the History Center, and I'm glad you're here. I think it's going to be a really great conversation. Autographed copies of A Better Man are available from our official book-selling partner, Acapella Books, at the link in the chat box to the right of your screen. My copy was actually signed in person in January before everything happened. And he wrote, "I miss you." And I bet he's missing me even more now because the pandemic has kept us apart. So you will definitely want to get your copy of this book. If you have questions, please add them to the chat to the right of the screen, and Chuck will get to as many of them as he can. Michael Ian Black is an actor, comedian, and writer who started his career with the sketch comedy show The State on MTV. He's created and starred in many other television shows. Movie appearances include Wet Hot American Summer, The Baxter, and Sextuplets. He's the author of several books for children, including the award-winning I'm Bored, I'm Sad, and I'm Worried, and the parody A Child's First Book of Trump. His books for adults include the memoirs You're Not Doing It Right and Navel Gazing, as well as the essay collection My Custom Van. Black also co-authored with Meghan McCain, America, You Sexy Bitch. As a stand-up comedian, Michael regularly tours the country and has released several comedy albums. His podcasts include Mike and Tom Eat Snacks with Tom Cavanaugh, Topics with Michael Showalter, How to Be Amazing, and Obscure. He lives in Connecticut with his wife and 2 children. Joining us tonight to interview Michael is Charles Chuck Bryant. He is the co-host of the long-running podcast Stuff You Should Know. Additionally, he also wrote, starred, and produced in the Stuff You Should Know TV show, and he hosts his Movie Crush podcast. This fall, we'll see the release of the first Stuff You Should Know book, and that'll be available, I'm sure, also from Acapella Books. In his free time in Atlanta, he likes to spend his time gardening, hanging out with his family, and playing guitar and singing in his old man band. Chuck and Michael, thank you both for doing this. I'll turn it over to you, Chuck. The Zoom room is yours.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Chuck. And thank you so much, Kate. You know, when we were chatting just before, Kate was being very friendly and chatty. But then when the broadcast came on, like her voice dropped, was just like, I feel like a third of an octave.
Yeah.
And it got almost sultry. I liked it.
Yeah, she went into her phone voice.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was, I mean, they're both great voices.
They are. And, I've done a few of these in person in conversations for books. And this one is a little different via Zoom, and it's a little weird. And I think we're just going to have to trust that there are actually people watching.
Oh, I don't trust that at all. And I make a point of not looking at how many participants are there.
Is that a thing?
What I have found for myself is doing these events is that, first of all, there's something really nice about the intimacy of them. And second of all, the conversation to me is just as valuable whether there are 5 people watching or 500. And when I say 500, let it be known, there have never been 500 people watching.
So we are here to talk about this book, A Better Man, which was just released last week. I got my copy mailed to me, which is very kind of them to do so. And I read almost all of it last weekend. And I saved the last 2 chapters for right before we did this, which I just read about an hour ago. And I got out my ugly cry there at the end. It was, I loved it, man. This book really, really spoke to me in a lot of ways as a father myself, even though I have a young daughter. There are many, many lessons here, even if you don't have a son. I think even if you're not a parent, if you have been the child of a parent, because you get into your relationship with your own parents who left you when you were young and or left the earth when you were younger, and your relationship with your father and your mother. And it's really just about the human condition. It's very relatable. And I was wondering if, as you were going into this, a letter to your son, if that sort of came naturally to sort of broaden it out to talk about all these things and all these great life lessons about just humans.
I couldn't talk to my son about the things that I wanted to talk to him about without broadening it out. I couldn't talk to him about being a guy and sort of what I've learned about being a guy without talking about so many things that I didn't even want to talk about. And then when I was writing it, what I realized is, because my dad did die when I was young, that so much of this book is in a lot of ways a letter to him, my father, as much as it is to my son.
Yeah, I mean, what did you learn about yourself through this? Because it was clearly some catharsis going on for you, as well as being sort of a guidebook into for masculinity and to manhood for your son.
I think that answer is evolving for me, because I think I sort of take different things from it, sort of the further I get away from writing it. But the thing that is really sort of sticking in my craw about myself lately is I talk a fair amount in the book about how one of the ways that you can be successful as a human and as a guy is to learn how to ask for forgiveness and to have humility, and to understand that there's a lot of strength in that, it requires a lot of strength and courage to kind of open yourself up and ask somebody earnestly for forgiveness. So what I've learned is I'm a hypocrite because I have a hard time doing that still to this day. We'll continue to have a hard time doing that. But then the deeper thing is, I say it takes a lot, even more courage and strength to forgive yourself for things. And that's a lesson that it's easy to say, very, very hard to do. And I struggle with it. I really, really struggle with it. So, when I say it's to my son and to my dad, it's also to me, lessons to myself about just how to be better. Because, when the book's called A Better Man, that's about me. Like, I'm trying. It's not like I've arrived at being a better dude. I haven't. Like, it's all process for me. So, it's a continual reminder to try to be better.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like therapy for me too. I think a lot of people will relate to this book and just the journey that we're all on, especially when you get into parenthood, to try and do better than our parents did, quite frankly.
Sometimes just be better than we were yesterday,
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we all suck.
We do. A lot of times we all suck.
But a lot of times we do great stuff too. I don't want to dismiss that either. Like, we can be pretty great and we can also suck. And both of those are, as you say, the human experience.
Well, I think that's one of the things I love most about it was you don't really sugarcoat anything for your son. You talk about how humans are messed up in a lot of ways and how we can do better. But there's still, I think, a hopeful thread through the whole thing, which really, really spoke to me.
Yeah, I mean, as cynical as I am about a lot of things, I think at root, I'm kind of an optimist. I think to have kids, you almost have to be. You almost have to awaken the optimist in you, or else why would you have kids? You have to believe that the future can be a positive and uplifting place, or you're just a sadist and you're just throwing your kids to the wolves. And
Right.
I don't like to think I'm a sadist.
So I know the answer to this because you kind of answer it toward the end of the book, as insofar as you being a useful engine. But I do want to talk about the origins of the project and if it started out as originally literally a letter to your son, and how it might have evolved to a book and why.
It started out as a Twitter thread, actually, after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting, because I had been, since Sandy Hook, which occurred in the town next to mine, when my kids were in elementary school, I'd been very vocal about gun violence in our country. And spent a lot of time blaming a lot of people, including the NRA, legislators, gun manufacturers, etc., and continue to. However, After Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, which had happened when at a high school in Florida, the worst mass shooting in a high school in American history, and occurred when my kids were in high school. I was so upset by it, and I just started tweeting a kind of obvious question that I hadn't really heard anybody ask, which is, why is it boys who are pulling the triggers on these crimes? It's always boys and young men. Mm-hmm. It's never females. But I never heard anybody talking about that aspect of it, which is such a kind of glaringly obvious thing.
Right.
And I never really thought about it. So I wrote a Twitter thread about it, just sort of just venting, which, which picked up traction. And then the New York Times asked me to write an op-ed about it. And I was like, I don't know, like, I'm not smart enough to write an op-ed about this shit. But I did. And that was well received. And then a publisher came to me and said, do you want to write a book about this? And again, I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to get up on a soapbox. Mm-hmm. I'm not smart enough. I'm not an academic. Like, how am I going to write a book about this? And it was my editor who suggested I write it as a letter to my son. And that resonated with me because my son was a high school senior and graduating from high school. And coincidentally, like with maybe a couple months before, I had bought a cookbook because I'd started cooking by this, it was a gift by this guy named Cal Peternell. I ended up using a quote from him in, is it the epigraph? Is that what you call it? The thing before the book?
I have no idea.
I always get them mixed up. The little quote before the book.
Yeah.
I'll read it. And this is from Cal Peternell's 12 Recipes. And it's a cookbook. He writes, it was with a little surprise and a little shame that I realized my eldest son was only a summer away from leaving home for college, and I hadn't taught him or the other kids how to cook. And that really stuck with me. Yeah. I was like, I haven't taught my son how to cook, and in this case, it was like about what I've learned about being a guy. And I had learned a lot, because I had thought about these questions a lot over the course of my life for a variety of reasons. And I thought maybe I could have something to say to him. So I agreed to write the book.
Well, I mean, it was a really great way in, I think. It really helps endear it to the reader. And especially for someone like you who has, a terrific following and fan base of people who love what you do. I think it's almost like you're peeking in on something very personal. Almost like you're able to read someone's diary. And I think that the book is much better for that. And I think it's something that your fans are really going to be interested in.
Well, thanks. That's really kind of you. I knew I couldn't write a book that was like academic. Like, I knew I couldn't write a book like explaining shit or explaining how stuff works, for example, because I don't know.
You kind of do, though. Like, one thing that really impressed me in the book is it's not just some middle-aged white guy doling out advice like everything. You do. You've done a lot of great research, and there's a lot of, you talk about Henry Clay, and you're kind of bouncing through history to kind of make certain points. And again, I think the book is so much better for that deep dive. So you ended up doing that whether you wanted to or not.
Well, yeah, I was really struggling. Like, how do I write this in a way that feels rooted in something real? Yeah. But isn't preaching and isn't a lecture, and it's hard. It's really hard. And so the way I tried to do it is just keep returning to the personal, to the personal, to the personal.
You get into some pretty heavy stuff. It's with Sandy Hook, 9/11, later in the book, God and spirituality, and what you call woo-woo stuff. Yep. And you really go there. And I wondered how hard was that for you to kind of go dark? Because it's very funny, but it's also a pretty serious book.
Yeah, I mean, it says right there in the subtitle, a mostly serious letter to my son, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, there are jokes. Yeah. I am, I make jokes, but it's not a funny book. It was hard. I mean, there's things about it that are hard. Mm-hmm. It was, it's hard to write about Sandy Hook. Yeah. Because it happened half a dozen miles from my house, and I didn't want to I didn't want to take their pain as mine and own their
Yeah.
pain in any way, shape, or form, because what I experienced as a neighbor
Hmm.
bears no relationship to what they experienced as a community.
Yeah, you
That being
didn't.
said, it hit our community, all our communities around here, really hard.
Of course.
And it was hard. It was hard to revisit that. And it was, you know, and there's some painful stuff from my own like upbringing that I talk about, including my mom's relationship with her partner, a woman,
Yeah.
which ended my parents' marriage, as these things tend to do. Yeah, I mean, my life in general is pretty happy, but there have been some dark moments. We all have them.
Yeah, and you talk a lot about that, about as sort of mundane as it sounds, like for a goal that you wish for your son is happiness. But you really get into it and dive into that and what that really means. It's not just something a father says to a son or a daughter, I want you to be happy. It could be very trite, but there's so much substance to it, the way you tackle it, I think.
Because above all else, I wanted this to be pragmatic in a lot of ways.
It is.
And happiness as a goal, I think, can be pragmatic.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk a lot in that section about how we ask young people all the time, what do you want to be when you grow up? But nobody ever says, what do you think will make you happy when you grow
Right.
up? And the two are very different questions. And the first question is kind of predicated on your industriousness and your use to the economy. And there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think, inherently. But it doesn't really, it's not that it doesn't allow for happiness, but it doesn't necessitate it. Your happiness is sort of secondary in that question to your contributions to society.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found as I've gotten older that I value my personal happiness way more than I value anything else. And that happiness can be quantified. Like, you can understand what that means. And I talk about what it means for me in the book. And I encourage him to find the thing that makes you happy, that gives you happiness. That can
Right.
be a job. It doesn't have to be a job. It can be related or unrelated to a job. But you should be seeking that.
Yeah. We're the same age, and it's getting older is a funny thing.
You're also 26?
Yeah, I am. I was trying to do the quick math on what year that would make me being born, but I can't go there. It's a funny thing to age and to realize these things and realize that the journey is never over. At least I think if you're sort of a sentient thinking human who doesn't just, dissolve into the couch and think that, like, I can't grow anymore. And it was a big lesson to me to read this and to think about, because how you frame marriage as well, and early on in your marriage, how things were when you got married, not quite even knowing that you should get married. Just a very honest look at marriage as well, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's true. In fact, I find the older that I get, the more curious I get, and
Mm-hmm.
the more desperate to kind of not know things, but at least go on the journey of questioning things. I mean, I'm never going to know everything. I don't even want to know everything, but I want to understand what interests me and to move towards those things. And yeah, as far as marriage goes, I wasn't convinced, even when I proposed, that it was the right move. But I felt like it was a chance worth taking, that there was something about the promise of it that held, in my mind, like a lot of potential riches.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been the case. But, when you're going mining for jewels, like, there's a lot of work involved. You break a sweat. And my wife and I have broken many sweats over the years, trying to find the good shit. You have to get through a lot of bad shit to get there. And, I think that's true for every marriage. And I wanted to paint marriage as realistically as I could. I do think the reward for me has outweighed the risk. But there's risk, emotional
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah. And that's a conversation that I don't think enough parents have with their kids, just about love and marriage. And you talk a lot about love, especially at the end. And that's, that's something I wish my parent, not to get into all that, but I didn't have parents that really loved each other very much. And I didn't have great models for love and for marriage. And it set up, I think our parents' generation set up an entire generation of kids that many of us didn't have great models. So just to be able, what a gift to be able to talk to your son and your daughter like this about the realities of being with someone for a long, long time, because it's very hard.
It is hard. And, my kids see us bicker all the time.
Sure.
We just bicker about just dumbass shit.
Mm-hmm.
But they also see us laughing together and being affectionate with each other. They see the good and the bad. And I think they've learned over the years what this relationship looks like anyway. And I think they've learned, like, in observing our marriage, probably the lessons they've taken away are fairly realistic lessons about the way long-term relationships work. They're not always pretty. Yeah.
So I was really impressed with how honest you were about yourself and your faults. And you really kind of, in a couple of instances, go down a road of telling a couple of really tough stories about when you did bad things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so few people admit that publicly, admit that to their children, to their family. We've all done terrible things, and so few of us talk about that. And what was that like for you to kind of throw out those things publicly? Did you almost not?
No, I wanted to, because I feel like, particularly when writers write, I got horrible dogs. Particularly when they write memoir and personal stuff, there is a temptation to dip your paintbrush in the glaze and make yourself just a little bit shinier than you are. And I don't have any interest in that. I'm not interested in being the quote unquote hero of my own story, because I know myself not to be heroic. I know my flaws, and I want my son to know, like, I don't think I'm any better than anybody else. If anything, a lot of times I'm worse than a lot of other people. Like, I'm a dickhead a lot of the times, and I'm working on it. And that's okay. I think it's okay to make mistakes. You need to.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can at least acknowledge them, at least have the honest intention of doing better, I think that's kind of all we can ask. And we're going to make the same mistake. I do. I make the same mistakes all the time. And it's like, you feel like you're just falling backwards, and you have to, like, take a step forward, take a step forward, take a step forward. They're just patterns in our lives, and I haven't outgrown them. I wish I could, but I haven't.
Is that one of those gray sweaters you're wearing?
No.
Oh, you got a hoodie? Okay.
Yeah, this is the hoodie that my wife bought. Chicago.
All right, there you go.
My hometown.
I thought that was very funny and I do the same thing, how you're constantly going around the house preaching, like, we don't need this much, we need to buy less. And but man, if I see another fucking gray sweater, I'm gonna go buy it.
Oh yeah. My hypocrisy knows no bounds. It's just a boundless, enduring hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It's just
so let's talk about gender roles. It's a big part of the book, and I love how you chose to address it, because you don't just take a straight up, I just have to be PC and just toe the line about everything. It's very pragmatic and very realistic in that you break them down and you tear them apart at times, but you also reassure your son at times about the realities of being a man. And you're going to have to be the one that goes downstairs in the middle of the night when there's a noise, and you should pick up that check on the first date, which is a very funny part of the book. I used to go Dutch every time.
Always.
I admire that in a way, but oh boy, I can't imagine.
Well, I mean, and I had thought about this a lot when I was younger, because I grew up in this feminist household
Yeah.
with these two lesbian women who were always railing against male chauvinist pigs. And as I got into like dating age, it seemed to me intellectually that if I pay for dinner or the movie or whatever,
Yeah.
she may feel like she owes me something. And I was so worried about that I just did the dick move of like, no, we'll go Dutch.
Right.
It's so stupid. Like, it's okay to be my wife is like, she's shaking her head like at this, like, you really are a dick. Yeah, she's like, you could pay for me. I'm like, yeah, and I learned the lesson. And she wouldn't feel like she owed me. No, she would not feel like she owed me anything. That is for sure. But yeah, I learned the lesson. It took a long time for me to understand that it's okay. It's okay to be generous, and it's okay to like treat somebody like that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, you frame it as what it is, which is polite. It's not, I'm a man, so I have to pay because, I might make more money or whatever, be more settled. It is a polite thing to do. And it's nice to hold open the door for a woman or a man, or to give up your seat on the subway. Those are kindnesses, I think, that it's easy to lose track of those these days when I'm trying to say this in the right way to not get us in trouble. Everyone should be treated equally, but sure. Sometimes it's nice to pay for the dinner.
Absolutely. Well, there's a real struggle in the culture, and I think it's a great conversation to have. I mean, these little sort of, I wouldn't say micro gestures, these little gestures, yeah, I think deserve to be scrutinized. We deserve to look at them and say, well, is it appropriate for a man to open the door for a woman? And the answer is, yeah, it's totally appropriate. It's just a polite thing to do. And for another dude, like, chivalry in and of itself is great. Like, yeah, give something of yourself for the benefit of somebody else.
Right.
But do it because it's the right thing to do. Do it because you want to, create some generosity and kindness in the world. And historically, like, men have been expected to kind of sacrifice and throw themselves, in front of oncoming traffic and open doors and do whatever. I think all of that is great. We historically, traditionally, are providers and protectors. That's sort of what dudes have done for thousands of years. And the temptation now is to go, well, men shouldn't do that shit anymore. Well, yeah, we should. But we also have to open the space up to say women can also be providers and protectors. Right. That's a great thing that women are now capable of doing that. And they were always capable, like physically and whatever, but the culture allows it. The culture allows for them to provide. The culture allows for them to protect. But I quote an executive, a female executive.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. In the book,
who says, she's like, I'm the head of a company. I'm getting the quote wrong, but sometimes I just want to be spooned, basically. And we all need that. We all need that in our lives. And guys need that as much as women do. And I think when we open the door for women to become providers and protectors, what should be concurrent with that is opening the door for men to be nurturers and helpers. And that's kind of the message. Like, we're full spectrum humans, all of us.
Yeah.
And the culture is has sort of accommodated women being full spectrum humans, but is less accommodating for men to be the same. And what I'm saying to my son is, be your full self.
Yeah, and also the very valuable message for boys to be vulnerable and ask for help, for God's sake. And it is so ingrained. You talk a lot about masculinity and what that means. And so much of it was, you just grin and bear it. You get through it. You don't ask for help. You don't show your weak side. You don't show your hand. And it's just such the wrong message if we're going to raise good humans in the future.
And I have I talk about sort of traditional masculinity, and I list some of the attributes: strength and endurance and perseverance and whatever. And I am not an advocate of everybody walking around like an open wound going, help me, help me, help me. There is a lot to be said for trying to fix a problem and seeing your way through something, for men and for women.
Yeah.
But there's a tremendous amount to be said as well for those moments when you do need help, to reach down or reach out, I guess, and ask for it. I will give you another perfect example of my own hypocrisy on this subject. From a week ago, I went camping. I went hiking and backpacking by myself for the first time. I'd never done this before. I went to the Appalachian Trail and I just started walking. And I was planning on being gone for like 3 days or something.
Wow.
Just to try it. By the end of the first day, I was so dehydrated and exhausted that I was within about 200 feet of my campsite and had to sit down on the wet forest floor because I was going to pass out. And I heard two hikers coming behind me, and I had just turned off the trail, and they were approaching, and I was like, I cannot let these people see me like this. I cannot and I couldn't get up. I mean, I was exhausted. And I honestly would have rather died there on the forest floor than to have them come up to me and be like, "You okay, man?" Like, that's my own.
Are you Michael Ian Black?
Like, it's just a perfect example of my own hypocrisy, because I was in bad shape.
Yeah.
But I honestly, like, the earth could have swallowed me whole, and that would have been preferable to me.
How did the trip go? Did you enjoy that? Because I grew up camping and hiking, so that's kind of funny that.
After the first day, when I survived the first day, and learned that you have to drink water when you're hiking in 150% humidity and like you're pouring sweat, you need to drink water. After I learned that lesson, I enjoyed it more, but it was really hard. I didn't think it was going to be as hard as it was.
You going to go again?
I'm going to go next week.
Nice. By yourself?
Mm-hmm. Because, I love my family, but I've been with my family since the pandemic started.
Yeah.
I'm tired of my family.
Yeah, I hear you.
So tired of my family.
Well, I've got some land in the North Georgia mountains on a river. So if you ever feel like, walking a long way, the Appalachian Trail, I'll meet you in like Virginia or something. I think we can move on to some other questions if we have any. If Kate can populate that right side. Do you see questions? And if not, I'll just keep talking.
Yeah, they came to you like in the panelist link. So
panelist link. I don't see that. Well, let me ask you another question then while we're figuring this out. Has your son read this yet?
It was sitting on his night table for about 4 months, unopened. And I would say, have you looked at the book? No.
Really?
And then last week when it came out, I think more out of guilt than anything else, he finally cracked it open and started reading it.
I hope he reads it all. It's just so sweet and such a great, like, I got so much out of it. And I just want to be like, read the book, man. It's so great. And maybe that takes 10 years or something.
Chuck, will you be my son?
Well, I am 26, so I'm not too far off from your son's age. He seems like a cool guy, though. I love the stories that you tell about him.
He's great.
When you were just cooking dinner, when you were writing it, and he kept going in and out and in and out and in and out, and he finally just sat down and said, "I'm here. I'm here now." All right, I see some questions here on the chat side. Do you have plans? All right, some of these are non-book related, of course, but this is from Jessica H42. Do you have plans to do more Mike and Tom Eat Snacks? Please say yes.
Yes.
Okay, that was quick. This is from Leighton. Do you think that parents discipline boys differently than girls? If so, in what ways? That's a good one.
It is a good one. And again, like, I don't want to answer definitively here because I'm not an academic and I haven't studied parenting in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think every family is different. I do think that a lot of dads in particular can be tougher on boys.
Right.
Maybe moms too, I don't know. My sense is that dads can be kind of tough on boys. And it's not out of a lack of love by any means.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is, and I have a story about this in my book about a woman who I was communicating with over Twitter, and she was telling me about her own experiences with her father, and the way he used to physically abuse their brother, but never them. I think a lot of it has to do with a sense from some men that they have to build defenses in their sons so that they are impervious to the world as they get older.
Mm-hmm.
So the father feels like, I would rather it be me being a tough guy and a dick to this kid because I love him than have him discover too late that the world is a cruel and uncompromising place.
Right.
I think it's, personally, I think that's the wrong way to go and the wrong way to parent. It's certainly not the way I parent, and it's not the way I raised either of my kids to be defensive first. The world does require a certain amount of toughness. There's no denying that. But I hope you wouldn't have those defenses erected because of your parents.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I have a daughter, and I would have been happy with a son, but I wanted a daughter. I didn't, because I knew it was just gonna be one and done for us because we started late. But I was a little worried about that dynamic of father and son a little bit, I think, and the doors that I would have to walk through because of my relationship with my dad. So I wanted a daughter, and we got one, and that is a very sweet relationship, which is pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, my relationship with my daughter is certainly different than my relationship with my son. I mean, they're two different people, so they're going to be different relationships. But it does seem like there is something in our sort of father-daughter dynamic that is different than the father-son dynamic, as much as I wish it weren't. I mean, I wish, there was sort of parity. It's not that I love one more than the other or treat one better than the other. I don't.
Even though you say that in the book.
Definitely a different dynamic.
It's a very funny part.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Let's go with, this is a good one from Brittany. Is your son looking forward to voting?
Yeah, he is actually. He was disappointed. I mean, he was really rooting for Bernie, as many young people were. And we had good talks about it. We really did. We during the primaries, we had a lot of talks between my wife and me and my son about the different candidates. He was really pulling for Bernie. He was really disappointed that it's Biden.
Yeah.
And he's going to vote for Biden.
Yeah. Good.
I'm undecided. I don't know who I'm going to vote for, but
who are those people? My God, they supposedly exist. I mean,
allegedly there's undecided voters out there somewhere.
Oh my God.
I'm not sure I fully believe in them, but okay.
Can't make up my mind about these two. So this is from Nikki. Even back when you were on the state, did you always want to write, or was that something you discovered you were interested in doing later on?
It was the state that taught me how to write. Right. It was a sketch comedy show, and we had to write our own material. We didn't have writers. We were the writers. And I think kind of unbeknownst to me, even though I was the one doing it, I had always written, but never really thought of it particularly. Like, I would write short stories sometimes just to write short stories.
Right.
I would do I always wrote, but never thought of myself as a writer. And then as I got older, I knew that I did want to write and was really terrified by the prospect because I didn't know how I ever would. The first book I wrote was just a collection of really silly, dumb essays called My Custom Van, and 50 other mind-blowing essays that will blow your mind all over your face. And I knew when I wrote that, like, this is me sort of dipping my toe into writing, just to assemble a bunch of things together and present them as a collection. And even though I'm happy with that book and feel like the individual pieces are funny, like, I wanted to go further, and I still want to go further. So much of the reason I write, and this maybe will sound dumb, but is to learn how to write. I mean, I never went to school for it. I don't have an education. Right. I'm not well read in the classics, but I want to be a good writer.
Well, I mean, I think this is an evolution for sure for you as a writer and artist. And, you know, certainly screenwriting and sketch writing is a much different discipline. What do you want to do next writing wise? Do you have a novel in you, like a straight up sort of fictional novel?
The answer is I want to write a novel. And again, I don't think I'm capable of writing a novel.
It's pretty scary.
Oh my God. But the thing is, like, the way I've approached a lot of my career, especially over the last 10 years, is to really try to move towards the things that intimidate me the most.
Yeah.
And that is my, to use a literary illusion, that is my great white whale, is writing some kind of novel. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I really don't.
You should rewrite Moby Dick.
Or just write it the same. I mean, it worked out the first time.
Maybe no one will notice.
How many people have actually read it? I mean, if I just put it out.
I haven't.
I've got it sitting on my bookshelf. Never read it.
Just change up the title. No one will know.
The Big Whale by Michael Ian Black.
This is from Jessica H42. Another question from her. How does Martha feel about the book?
I'm looking over there because she can't see or hear me, but she is somewhere over there. She likes it. She is used to my writing now and is used to seeing herself portrayed in print. And she likes the book. She thinks it's well written. She thinks the message is good. And yeah, she's been really supportive.
That's awesome. And, you know, since we're shut down for coronavirus and you're not able to go out and do live shows, is writing sort of the thing for you right now that you're really kind of diving into the most?
No, I wish. I mean, you know, it's funny. I think a lot of people, when COVID started, thought, well, now I'll have the time to do the thing that I've always said I was going to do. And I think what we all learned is, no, you won't. No, you won't. We allocate our time the same, regardless of whether we're working 80 hours a week or 0 hours a week. So there have been things that I've been doing that I did want to do. So I've been learning piano and I've been learning guitar and I took a Bible class.
Oh, wow.
I went hiking and camping.
Right. I was about to say.
Yeah. There are things like I have been doing, but they're purely like hobby stuff. Like my actual career, I've done jack shit.
Really?
Like I've done some writing, but mostly I've just been, and napping. I've done a ton of napping.
Yeah, there's a funny part in the book about that. Well, and that's something I enjoyed too in the book was your take on your career and sort of this character that you thought that you were pigeonholed into earlier on as fairly sarcastic and deadpan. And the older you got, and especially after having children, getting married and having kids, how that didn't fill you up as much. And that's just a real honest take, because I think it's in this line of work, it's so easy to just run with something if it works. And it's brave to address that and to maybe leave that behind.
Well, I knew that I couldn't keep doing it. It wasn't, I mean, you know, it was a conscious decision to stop being the sort of deadpan asshole. Like I could do that probably forever, but I couldn't. I just couldn't. I felt like I was imprisoning myself in something and it wasn't honest. And I do have an annoying tendency to like want to be honest. It's not really me. I mean, I think it is annoying. Like, I think it can be detrimental. And it has been detrimental, I think, for me. When I said I wanted to be happy earlier, that desire really does outweigh everything else. Because I know a lot of people in show business who do really well and aren't happy.
Yeah.
You know, like, I know so many people in LA who are like, you know, because I live in Connecticut. And the reason I lived in Connecticut was because Los Angeles wasn't making me happy. I lived out there for like a year and a half. And I was like, this place sucks.
Yeah.
But there's so many people who live there who are like, oh, I wish I could get out. I blah, 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 blah. I'm like, then get out. You know, like this, like you may be sacrificing something in terms of like the amount of work that you do, but why are you working if not to make yourself happy? If you're not happy, get out. So that character that I was busy creating was not making me happy, even though I thought I was good at it. And so I had to change. I just had to change for my own happiness and well-being.
That's great. Well, I think we're out of time, my friend. The book is A Better Man. It is fantastic. It's a quick read. It's very breezy. It's funny. It's meaningful. There are so many lessons. It's sad. I legit cried at the end. Real man tears. And I loved it so much. So congratulations on that. It's in bookstores now. So go out and get it. And I appreciate you taking the time, man. This is a big thrill for me. I'm a huge fan.
Chuck, this was a real pleasure. Thank you so much for reading the book and being thoughtful about it and asking good questions. And thank you to Kate for hosting.
Thank you, Kate.
And this was just a great event. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Get out there and go camping.
I'm going to.
Thanks, everyone.